Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bible Talks on Bikes. And this week, I wanted to share a quick Bible verse out of Job chapter 1. In verse 21, it says the phrase, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." So, this verse has been in my mind recently. So, let's jump on the bike and talk about it.
So the reason I find this verse interesting, or why it's been on my mind recently, is so a couple weeks back, I was actually informed that our team at work is being downsized. And by team, I mean everybody in my location was being laid off. And layoffs aren't something that's unusual in my line of work. It kind of comes with the territory, I guess. It's pretty common. But I was informed that information, and then probably about a week or two after that, I came down to visit family across the country and went to church. It was interesting because the pastor brought up this verse and the story of Job. And if you know the story of Job, or if you don't, basically, Job loses everything. He loses his health, his kids, and he was told, curse God and die. And he said, through all this time, he still kept his faith in God, and he said, "God gave, God takes away. Blessed be the name of God." Basically, through all these troubles, he's still relying on God, understanding that, you know, God's got in control, and he's praising God through all this. And then after all these horrible things happen to him, God blesses him and restores his health, his life, his household, everything. He gets everything back. And so the pastor is talking about the story, and then relating it to our lives, and the things that we go through. And the one example that he brings up is, he just says, "Has anybody lost their job recently? Um, God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God." And basically, that's the only example he brought up at the moment, and I thought that was funny because, just recently, this happens to me, and this is the only example that the pastor brings up, as if the sermon was meant for me. And this has happened to me more than once in my life, where I come to church and I'm listening to a sermon that I relate to, and it's as if that sermon is meant for me. Um, so I thought it was interesting. But yeah, anyways, and by this point I had been applying to multiple jobs, and by multiple I mean a lot of jobs, and I hadn't gotten a call back about pretty much any of them. Um, I hadn't had any interviews or anything, and I was visiting family. They kept telling me, "Hey, apply to jobs out here. Maybe you can move back." And I don't necessarily like living in this area, but my family is here, and I knew that eventually I was going to come back, um, and move back and settle down where my family is. And so I was like, "Hey, why not?" The sermon was on a Sunday, and on Wednesday I get a call about one of the jobs I applied for in the city where my family lives. They were like, "Hey, we want to have an interview um, tomorrow." And so we went over the preliminary questions, as in this, make sure I'm qualified to even go through the interview with the team that I was applying for. Um, and so that went through, and they're like, "Hey, let's do an interview tomorrow, Thursday." And so I have my interview on Thursday. I didn't feel like it went too great personally, but I kind of feel like that after pretty much any interview I ever had. But yeah, so I was like, you know what? If I don't get it, cool. Um, it'll be just a practice interview. But I prayed about it. I was saying, "Hey God, I don't really like this city, but my family lives here, and it'd be great, to be closer to family again. So show me if moving back here is what I need to do." Because my like mindset was that if I don't find a job by the time my layoff date comes, because they gave us kind of like a couple of weeks, has like notice that we were being that our team was being like laid off, um, to give us some time to try to either find a job within the company or externally. Anyways, I was my mindset was that if I don't find a job by the time that day comes, I would move back and you know look for a job, continue looking for jobs. Um, but it wasn't really what I wanted. So I kept praying, saying, "Hey God, if I need to move back, show me." And so then I had this interview, and I was like, hey, God, if this is the job for me that I need to take, because this is the first interview I've gotten, like, show me, let me get this job. If it's not, make sure I don't get the job. I didn't want to end up in the wrong job. Anyways, the weekend goes by, they don't say anything. And then on Tuesday, they call me back and they're like, hey, we want to offer you the job. And throughout this like whole weekend, I had been praying about it. It was just interesting how it all happened, right? Because this job that I had previously, I thought it was a great job. It was a blessing in my life to even have this job. I get laid off, and then God gives me another job back in the city where I'm closer to family and everything. Yeah, so the story of Job in this sermon and this verse just reminded me that through any hardships in life, through the good times and the bad times, I need to keep praising God and thanking God for everything that He does. And just to remember that God has the power to bless us. God has the power to take things away from our lives. And everything He does for the better. That even when we're going through hard times or things we don't understand why we either lost our job or something bad happened, that it's all in the end for the better. So yeah, so that verse has been on my mind for a while, and just wanted to share with you all. So thank you guys for sticking around, and God bless.